Gary, would you like to start?
I'll start off. I certainly will, Roy. Hello, Joanne. Hello, Ben on camera. I hope you're all well there. Roy, good to see you. Obviously, the inevitable first question about Wilf.
Well, it's quite good news, really. I mean, he's returned to training, albeit a little bit modified at the start of this week, but he looks really ready to go again. We'll have to wait for the green light, I think, from the doctor and the medical staff, but it's really looking very, very positive, and I think I'll be able to welcome him back into the squad very, very soon. So that's positive news. And while we're talking about positive news, I'm also very pleased that Jeff Schlupp and Connor Wickham have recovered from the long spell on the sidelines that they've had to face, and they're going to be available for me as well. So it's good news, if you like, on the offensive front, and we're looking much more like we should be looking now than we've done in the last 4 to 5 weeks when all these guys have been out injured.
So can we be more specific or not about Wilf in terms of obviously not United tomorrow, but Spurs or West Brom?
Yeah, well, I'm hoping both. Yes, I'm hoping both. Obviously, I'm optimistic. I haven't checked that out with the doctor perhaps as much as I should have done. No doubt he might be watching this interview, shaking his head and telling me don't be so bold. But my optimistic nature says to me, that both of those players will be back very soon.
That's such a boost, isn't it? Because it's been bad news on top of bad news injury-wise for you.
Yeah, it's been a tough time. It has been a difficult time. We're not alone though, are we? I mean, the fact is these games are coming so thick and fast. And what's more, we're reaching a stage, I think, in the season where it seems like we've been playing forever, because the break really between that project restart and this season, it just seems to merge into one. And I think that for all of us, it's becoming much more of a slog than it normally would be at this time of year. I think even the supporters are beginning to feel that as well, because it's game after game, night after night. And of course, we are seeing a lot of injuries. So I've never wanted to talk that much about our injury situation, because I know we're very much not alone. And every day I read about teams having to deal without their best players.
So just to clarify, I'm probably being a bit slow. Wilf, Connor and Jeffrey could all be involved, either Spurs or West Brom.
Yes. In fact, I think, even with Jeff and Connor, they'll be available even from tomorrow evening. So it's Wilf and James MacArthur and James Tompkins and Mamadou Sakho at the moment that we're missing. And unfortunately, we're also missing Nathaniel Klein and Tyrick Mitchell with lesser injuries, but injuries which will keep them out for a week or two.
And you're missing James MacArthur's engine, aren't you, it seems at the moment?
But James McCarthy is back, which is good. We haven't had James McCarthy for a long time. But James MacArthur, unfortunately, I think we're going to probably have to wait until the international break before we see him again.
Can I just ask you, how's Nathan progressing, Nathan Ferguson?
Yeah, good. I'm glad you asked the question there. In fact, it was his first day training with a squad on Monday. But at the moment, that squad's going to be the under-23 squad for a period of a couple of weeks, because we don't want to thrust him in after such a long time out with the intensity of first team training, just in case he does some more damage to a muscle. So we're going to give him 2 weeks with the under-23s to see how that progresses, and we hope that will go well, and then we can welcome him back into the fold here.
So that good news that you've just had regarding, the up front particularly, that's going to help address the lack of shots, I guess, in the last couple of games, even though you've had decent results.
Yeah, we've been pushed back by both Brighton and Fulham. They've played very well against us, and certainly we weren't able to leash the attacking play that we would have liked to have seen in those games. But it's partly because we haven't done well enough, and it's also a credit, if you like, to Brighton and Fulham for the way they pressed and swarm the midfield area, making life difficult for us to get the time on the ball we'd have wanted. But certainly the level of the players that are coming back will help us in that area. And I've seen us play very well on the ball through the midfield areas on many occasions during my time here. And I think you sometimes go through a period where something doesn't quite gel for you. At one stage earlier on this season, it was our defending, which I thought was not up to the standard that we were used to seeing from the players. Now that defending's really reached the highest of standards that I can expect from them, and we've lost a bit in the other direction. So it's not abnormal during the course of a season, but I'm pretty optimistic at the moment, looking at the squad, looking at the mood and the spirit, that we've got more than enough in us to finish the season well enough to ensure that Palace into that 9th season in the Premier League, which is so vitally important for everyone at the club, supporters included, of course.
What a boost to that state of mind would be doing a double over United. The first time Crystal Palace would have done a double over Manchester United. And your record recently has been pretty impressive, hasn't it? 1, 2 of the last 3 against them.
Yeah, we've done well. In fact, we've done well in all the games against them, but the results, strange enough, have come away from home when they probably had the lion's share of possession and the better of the game, if you like. But we've done extremely well on the counter-attack and taken our chances and come away with all the points. The games here at home are often been much closer affairs, in the sense that we've matched them quite well, during long periods, but then they've done to us what we've done to them at Old Trafford. They've taken the points, despite the fact that we could look back at the game and think we did well. But these games are an opportunity always. We're playing a team that's second in the league, obviously full of international stars, a team that's been put together at, quite a lot, quite considerable cost. And also a team that's got a very, very good record, not least of all away from home. So we're very much aware of all those things, but it's an opportunity for us to go out there and do what we can do and hope that the gods smile on us.
Roy, last one from me, if you don't mind. Some sad news today about Ian St. John. I guess you will have come across him quite a few times, particularly during your time at Anfield. Yeah,
strangely enough, I mean, obviously a man that I revere and respect enormously, for everything that he did for Liverpool and Scotland, and there's no doubt that his name was mentioned very much in revered tones during the short time I spent at Liverpool. I think actually I only met him once, to be honest. I'm not even certain I can swear to that either, because he didn't seem to be around the club an awful lot during that period of time. But my condolences, of course, to his family, and I've been blown away a little bit by all the wonderful tributes that are being paid to him by people who knew him well, and perhaps a little bit disappointed that during my time at Liverpool I didn't get a chance myself to spend a bit more time in his company. Cause I'm sure I'd have really enjoyed his company, and he could have taught me a lot of things about football and about his time at Liverpool and life in general. So I'm happy to have the chance to add my words, if you like, a praise for what a wonderful player and person he was. But I'm afraid I can't claim any real knowledge of him because we didn't come in across each other that many times.
Thank you so much for your time, Roy. Good luck.
Pleasure.
Sorry, we'll move to Lindsay Hooper of PLP.
Hi, Roy. Can I get a word on Gary Cahill? Because I saw another last-ditch defending attempt against Fulham and he stopped Joachim's header, didn't he, Joachim Anderson? And I think sometimes, wrongly, it's been levelled at Crystal Palace about this ageing squad, certainly in defence. But I just wondered what you thought of his current form.
Well, he's in excellent form. I'm afraid we can't balk too much at the criticism that we're an ageing squad, because we are. Our average age is much higher than every other team in the league, and people like Gary who are doing a fantastic job, but he can't deny the fact that he's 34 years of age. It's a fact of life. But I think it's very important that you've mentioned what a fantastic job he's done, especially in the last 2 games in terms of his defensive play. He's been a real hero for us back there. And the block you mentioned from Anderson, which I'd like to mention actually comes from him having been fouled in the first place. That block shouldn't have been necessary. If we'd have got the free kick we should have had, for the clear foul that was committed by Anguissa flying through and knocking him over. But it was incredible the way he recovered from that, to get himself up and and block the shot, which looked for all the world as if it would go in. So we're delighted with Gary. So happy to see him playing the football that he's always played and enjoying his football so much. And he really does prove that age is a number, because at the moment, I don't think a younger player would do any better or could do any better than he's done for us in the last games.
And of course, you've credited the defence, but it will be a huge task against Manchester United, who've got one of the most attacking lineups when you look at the players that they've got at their disposal. The team news for them, I know that you've had some good news, but they've got the good news that Cavani could be ready for this game and could be back. How much of a handful do you think he will be?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, if it's not him, it's Martial. If it's not him, it's Greenwood. If it's not him, it's Rashford. So it's really take your pick up there, isn't it? You know, you're talking one world star after another. Fantastic group of players. We have to be ready for everything they're going to throw at us. And we know they're going to throw a lot at us because, as you rightly say, they have so many good quality players at their disposal. And that's why they score so many goals. They don't need that many chances even to score the goals, because, you know, people chip in with goals from all sorts of angles and distances. So we're aware we're playing the team that lies second in the table. We're playing a team that hasn't lost away from home for 20 games. All those facts and figures are, you know, impossible to debate or to detract from. So all we can do is to make certain that we try and get our act together, that we prepare for the game in the best possible way, and that we defend as well as we've done, at least in the last couple of games, against the team that's had more possession, because that could easily happen again tomorrow night, to make certain that they can't get through, and then to hope that when we do win the ball back, we'll be able to hurt them on the counter-attack like we've done on several occasions in the past.
And one lighter-hearted question. Ted Lasso won a Golden Globe and it was based at Selhurst Park. I wondered, have you watched it, and were you aware of all the filming going on at the time?
No, funny enough, I wasn't. To be fair, our ventures to Selhurst Park only occur on match days, because we train in Beckenham, which is quite a long way from Selhurst Park. So, no, I wasn't actually aware of that. I did think I saw a clip of Lasso actually receiving his award, and many congratulations to him. But unfortunately, I wasn't aware that Selhurst Park was the venue. We can be pleased with that. We can be proud of that.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Lindsay. We'll go to Nick Callow at Haters.
Hi there, Roy. Another sort of a non-specific Palace question, if I may. Just your reaction to the news that England, along with the home nations and Ireland, are planning to bid to host the World Cup in 2030.
Delighted. I mean, wonderful news. I think that England has got everything needed to host a fabulous World Cup. Really, we still do believe that, to some extent, it was we who exported the game to many countries, and so we have that always in our locker. The '66 World Cup was such a fantastic occasion, but it's a long, long time ago now. And I think to wait to 2030 is more than long enough to give England a go at the World Cup again. And with all the stadium we have, with the fans, with the ability we have to welcome people to the country and house them, it's got the makings of a fantastic World Cup. So I really do hope that the government can give as much support to it as is going to be needed to make certain that FIFA decide that, we're the country that deserve it. But I hope I'm still alive around to watch it. That's even more important.
Me too. I know it's difficult to comment now, but from your time as England manager, did you pick up on a certain sort of animosity towards England that stopped them having the World Cup again since '66?
Yeah, difficult one, that one. I mean, I think that there's been times where obviously FIFA are the governing body, the very, very important body. And of course, at all times there are various factions which seem to have a bit more power with the powers to be in FIFA than at other times. But I don't honestly believe there's any agendas or anything like that. But it's going to be very important, I think, for England to realise that a lot of work does need to be done behind the scenes. You do have to make friends and to show that you're good people and that, they want to have you around. So maybe in the past we haven't done quite as much on that front as other nations. And my advice would be to make certain use these next 10 years to make certain that, you know, when our name is mentioned, a smile comes to people's faces rather than a frown.
Good advice. Thanks very much for your time.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Nick. Ian Abraham from TalkSport.
Hi, Roy. How are you?
I'm all right, Ian. Thank you. I'm fine.
Can I just ask you another one on Ian St John? Because I only saw St Greasley, which is why I know Ian St John. I guess you'd have seen him actually play football. Can you just tell us what a great striker he was?
Well, he's one of those strikers who had an incredible knack for scoring goals. Strange enough, I do remember him as a player, but my memories of him even now aren't that great, because you must remember I left the country for 2 years in the 70s, and basically from early 70s, then from 76 until late 90s, I wasn't back in the country. So you mentioned St and Greaves. I never saw that programme. I know of it, and I've seen your clip from it, and I know what an iconic programme it was, but I wasn't in the country to watch it at the time. It certainly wasn't shown in the countries I was working in. So I do remember as a player. What I remember most, I think, are two things. One, the incredibly high regard everyone had from at Liverpool Football Club. You know, during the short period I worked for the club, every time his name was mentioned, as it would be from time to time, it drew a sort of hushed reverence, really. And then I remember that incredible story, true story, I believe, outside a church in Liverpool, where I think someone was written, you know, what will you do when God returns to earth? And someone had written, we'll move Ian St John to inside right. I think that really says everything about what people thought about Ian St John, and that's better than anything I could really say about him. And my regret, to some extent, was I was lucky enough to meet most of the real legendary Liverpool players in one shape or form during my time, either at Liverpool or before I got to Liverpool. But Ian St John was one I didn't get a chance to speak to or have any real connection with, and I regret that, because I'm certain it would have been a very nice connection to have had. So I think I met him once, just so I only met Roger Hunt once, amazing enough. So it's quite strange, but it probably is because I think both men were people who did not seek to push themselves forward at any time. They were perhaps content to live in the legendary status that they'd achieved through their playing days.
The same could have been said, obviously, for Glenn Roeder, who sadly passed away at a much younger age at the weekend.
No, I knew Glenn a little bit more, yeah. You know, I had spent some time with Glenn. I can't remember in what context it was now, but I do remember having meetings and talking on many occasions with Glenn, and very, very sad to hear about his passing as well. It's been a sad couple of days for football to lose two such great football men and two such excellent players as well.
When you last spoke to us on TalkSport, we asked you about your future, and I still don't know if there's been any more, or whether you've decided any more about whether you're going to carry on beyond the end of this season.
Well, once again, I don't really want to think about that too much. I mean, there's a lot to be done in this season. There's a lot of things for me to look forward to in this season with the 12 games that remain. I'm really excited about, you know, trying to finish this season strongly. So I'm just content at the moment to continue along those lines and then see where it brings me. And I would prefer not to have to, at this moment in time, to start saying, yes, I want to continue, or no, I don't. So I'm afraid I'm going to keep ducking the question and keep pushing it back to the fact that for you to allow me just to get on with life as it is at the moment, and the life that I'm enjoying at the moment, and then we'll see what the future brings.
I don't want to stop you enjoying life, trust me. What about Gary Cahill, though? You mentioned before about, and he is an excellent defender. And when people go on in the last few years about the best free transfers, Gary Cahill's name every time springs to mind. What about his future at the club? Is he going to remain beyond the end of the season?
Well, again, that will be a question for the club. At the moment, the club doesn't seem to be in any particular hurry to address the questions of the 11 players that we've got out of contract. It's an awful lot of players to have out of contract at the end of the season, but the people at the the head of the club seemed quite happy to allow us to carry on doing what we're doing. They obviously feel satisfied that we're still doing our job to the best of our abilities, and people like Gary Cahill are still more than good enough to represent the club and help us to get some results. So really and truly, if you wanted a real, what's the word, angle or a real sign of, well, what's going to happen to Gary Cahill, and you can put the 10 other players, if you like, alongside it, you've really got to address those questions to the people who run the club, namely Steve Parish and the American owners, and Doug Friedman, whose job is technical director, if you like, and is involved in those things. And it's all I can say is I'm more than happy to continue working with all these guys, and I'm pleased they're still doing as much for the club as they are doing for the club. And if they're happy to let things pass as I am, then so be it. Let's carry on in that way. But I can't give you the sort of information that you're trying to seek from me, because A, I don't have it, and B, it's not really in my remit to talk about it.
See, you probably wouldn't tell me anyway.
You never know. I'm in a good mood today. I might have done, but I'll stick to my answer, which is the only answer I can give you, unfortunately. Most of my
last one, I mean,
relatively honest. I don't try and disguise or cheat too much on my answers.
I never do that. Just the last one. Last two games, you got 4 points out of 6, which is tremendous. With I think 3 shots or 4 shots on target. I mean, you're hoping for a maybe more expansive game against Man United, or is that not a great idea against a team like United?
Well, I mean, to be expansive, I suppose you've got to make good use of the ball when you get it, and we weren't able to do that against Brighton or Fulham, as I've said, partly because I don't think we've been going through our best spell in that area, and also partly because the 2 teams we played against deserve a lot of credit for making certain we didn't get a chance to show what we can do. But I'm optimistic because some of the players that probably would help us a lot more in terms of causing problems for the opposition and threatening their goal are now coming back into the team. It's not been easy to deal without them. We haven't had enough shots at goal. We haven't created enough goal chances. We're aware of that, but I'm afraid sometimes that is what happens in a football season. There was a moment when we were doing neither, and what's more, we weren't defending well at all. But at least we put that side of things right, and I'm pretty certain that the other side of the game that we care very much about, that we believe we've got the ability to show that we can do it. That I think will become more and more evident as the players get back to fitness, get back on the field again, and we can threaten the opponent's goal more than we've done in the last 2 games, where quite frankly it hasn't been enough. Although I'm sceptical about shots at goal. I mean, to be fair, we haven't actually, strangely enough, conceded that many shots at our goal. Our goalkeeper has not got any man of the match awards in either of the last 2 games, so. It's been a lot of it's been a bit of a stalemate with midfield play, but we haven't done enough with the ball. We're fully aware of that, but we'll get better.
Have a good afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot. That concludes the broadcast section.